Welcome back. So, which way Kenya? That is where we are today. In the last couple of months, we've seen cases of chaos rocking the country in political events or even church gatherings, the latest one being over the weekend where goons attacked a church function in Mwiki where the former deputy president was. But we've seen a series of such in the country. So the question is, how do we stabilize this so that we have a clean environment where Wanjiku either going to church or a political rally, Wanjiku can just have it easy, and even politicians can also have it easy with their functions in the country. So let me just come back to you, Kimani. As a public policy analyst, where are we as a nation? Are we glorifying violence? Is it part and parcel of our politics? Should we just normalize it and say, okay, this is us and let's do we?
Firstly,
what you can do best?
The only way to get to know the owner of the goons or the violence is who benefits from it.
Yeah.
And whose interest do they seem to serve whenever they are on the leash. Then if you follow the footprints, it will take you to the owner. In this case, it is undoubtedly the government of Kenya in two ways. If it wasn't the one unleashing the goons, then it has failed in containing them. We saw when the president was on the tour of Nairobi, wherever the president ended the tour, then there were these goons unleashed on the innocent Kenyans who snatched their mobile phones, stole their money, and to some extent beat the people. Now, we would have expected the Inspector General of the Police to give a presser, harshly warn the goons, and even take actions.
Action was taken. A couple of guys were arrested.
It went on, but the fact is, is that this whole thing was repeated for all the days the president was in Nairobi. And it used to happen like it was spontaneous. It was known. In fact, Kenyans were even warning that if the president is on this route, you guys be careful. Because immediately the president is done, there will be the goons doing their thing. Now, a former deputy president goes to church, and then goons all of a sudden shows up, wreak havoc, cause mayhem, demand some funny demands. But then at the end of the day, this political intolerance, the unleashing of goons on what you consider as dissidents, is a strategy implemented by exploitative regimes to intimidate the voice of dissent. It is a dangerous one because what it does in the end is that it strengthens the resolve of even the proscribed gangs.
Yeah.
We have seen Mungiki in Mount Kenya getting a reelection. You remember the Kibaki regime had ended it more.
Allegedly, is it there?
You see, whenever you see Maina Jenga and his goons being mentioned here and there, with the happenings that we are also witnessing, because again, something that has not been the norm of Mount Kenya politics is that of late Mount Kenya politics are also becoming violent. It is a thing that was not there for quite some time. But then it is almost back. The question is, what is the police which has the mandate, the wherewithal, the ability and everything to handle these gangs? What is it doing? We have a functional NIS in the nation that would have told the Kenya police there would be chaos in the church tomorrow. We should have seen a high number of police officers manning the premises because they have intelligence that there would be goons. That's how a functional system works.
Yeah.
In absence of that, and since the government has not become incapable of telling or collecting intelligence and telling that it will happen, and they do not do or take measures to counter it, then it can only be said that the government is allowing it to happen, and emboldening the actions of the goons, which is why I'm blaming it entirely on the actions, on lack of it, by the government.
Yeah.
The danger with it, as I've said, is that it strengthens other proscribed organizations.
Which is dangerous to the country.
That maybe we have some leeway we can exploit and make money in the process.
Okay.
Now, when you allow these monsters to grow, they grow to a point where it becomes difficult to contain them. And in the process, you end up hurting the people. Firstly, by you put people in, you put fear in people's hearts. They will stop attending those churches whenever politicians are coming, therefore interfering with their freedom to worship. So at the end of the day, the government has to ask itself a question. If it has issues with somebody who wishes to attend a service or somewhere, will they use goons to do so and in the process hurt its own people, or will they let the Constitution of Kenya remain supreme as it is and allow for freedom of association?
Okay. Let's take a break. Wakili, based on that same question, are we glorifying what we're seeing? And the question is, which way Kenya? Because almost every weekend we witness this. Almost every weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true. The intent of politics and a politician is to conquer and dominate. And therefore, you want to conquer and dominate over the populace and over your rivals. So what you do in the instance, you pump fear into the hearts of your opponent through actions as would intimidate and probably deter them from the functionality of the political process, causation of it being to interact and talk to the people out there, express yourself probably in manners that are uncomfortable with the existing political environment. For instance, if you will be in power, it is very irritating for a person to persistently, consistently, insistently, continuously cajole you into the ignominy of corruption, the ignominy of tribalism, and all those accusations as with attendance to that environment. But the problem is, that's the law. The problem is, that's democracy. In fact, it is what it's supposed to be. So those that are in power would cry foul over, probably look upon those that criticize them as irritants and people who want to grab power from them. And therefore, they would want to continue to exist. And this happens everywhere, whether at the governor's level, MCA level, whatever it is. Number two is those that are outside will then, barring any fatalities, would want that to be a continuous process because at the end of the day, it publicizes them as victims.
Yes.
Now, the political victimization in this country usually gets traction very fast. When Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto then were vying for presidency as a joint ticket, the driver was because somebody somewhere opened his mouth and said, choices.
Yeah.
And that was a white man, no, a black man in a white man's country. Choices have implications. And we were being told off and being talked to in a manner that was very derogatory because we were being warned against electing them. And we elected them, and the sun rose and it dipped over the days until today. When you cajole and force into submission people in Kenya, what I understand, especially for the politics of Central, they don't get subdued. You actually then infectiously spread the word of victimization. And that is what then the politics of Central Kenya ordinarily would thrive on. When Riggy G continues to play victim, as continuously and as, he continues to play it the way he is, people watch and people listen. If you ignore him, there'll be nothing to watch and to listen to. In fact, it is just a few months ago, probably 8 months ago, and before the impeachment, that Rigiji was a nobody. We only had him talking of shareholders. And we will condemn him for that because it looked then an ethnic predilection at the time. But now, every Kenyan would listen to him because it is sweet voice. It is sounding sweet to try and unravel the mystery, what happens in the powers.
Yes.
So when people sit down and make the deals as they were doing, because I don't think he didn't participate in one of those things. He was part of that college of execution at State House. But now he has a chance to report because you are giving him a platform of victimization upon which he can fight back through words. Now we listen to words. What else do we listen to as Kenyans? It is from the words that we hear what is in the heart or mind.
Okay.
It is from the words that we will make judgment as to who is good and bad. And by the way, it is not for us to judge a person who is not in office. We judge the person who is on the seat.
But then again, gentlemen, when you look at it, we are inching closer to 2027. And this is, every Kenyan's focus right now is 2027 election. There's nothing so big ahead of us right now, apart from 2027. But we have got the democratic progress that Kenya has been making over the years. How will this erode the institution of, that we are proud of ourselves, we are priding ourselves in as Kenyans, the institutions of probably judiciary? How will judiciary take care of such kind of political players whenever there are problems? Are they friends? Mwananchi will be just out there watching. But the question is, how will this affect the democratic progress that we have made so far as a nation? Kimani?
My fear is that we are heading to general elections in 2 years.
Yes.
And these goons are on the leash as early as 2 years before.
Yes.
And right now, what we would be seeing is swift action by the police to counter the goons. I normally say that it is not more of rotten apples. It is rotten barrels in which apples are put that could have a bigger implication. We can pick out one rotten apple and throw it away. But then when you have a bad barrel in which you put all your apples, then you have a bigger problem. Now, our biggest problem seems not to be about bad politicians who have hired goons for them to serve their interests, but a bad system that refuses to counter an ugly upcoming scenario that will have far-reaching repercussions by the time we get to 2027. Now imagine, now we are in 2027 with thousands of politicians vying for positions, and each politician having learned that the only way to quiet or intimidate your opponents is to have goons. Now you can imagine thousands of politicians, each with their goons. Firstly is that they are going to overrun the police system in this nation. Because if you are unable to handle the small clusters of goons today, when there is peace and calmness, what about when there is the cacophony of the political dean, everybody is here shouting, doing their stuff, campaigning with goons following them? It will be chaotic and ungovernable. And now tell me, how will that electioneering system give us leaders that we can trust to take Kenya forward from 2027 to 2032?
But are we just normalizing this?
Now the danger is that the police is failing to disenfranchise these goons, and by failing to do so, they are bequeathing us a very big problem in 2027. A scenario where even the will of the people will not be upheld by the IEBC, no matter how much it tries, because there will be too much intimidations of candidates in 2027 by goons owned by these politicians. You get what I'm saying?
Sure.
Now, anybody in the security apparatus and systems of this nation ought to see where we are headed to and crack heavily on these gangs today so that nobody will be entertained to have them in 2027 when they can overrun the system. Now, the government may play around with them because today they are serving their interests, and they may not question them so much because they're inflicting fear on a few dissidents today. What about when they glow full throttle in 2027?
And they're now fully charged.
And they are fully charged, and they're even emboldened because they serve politicians who are untouchable, especially those on the side of the government. It is a scenario we do not want to go into. But because we have a government, in one way or another, we can't tell what kind of government we have in place. When we have and we hear the allegations coming from people like former Deputy President, as Wakili is insinuating, it scares you to the bone. That a president whose main concern should be the welfare of the people of the Republic is engaged on actions that jeopardizes the welfare of the people.
Okay, but then...
So when you put all those things into perspective, we have a lot to do to change and improve before 2027.
When you look at the democratic space, thank you, Kimani, but when you look at the democratic progress, Wakili, as well, is it in danger?
Yes. Yes. Constructively so. You see, action begets a reaction. Let's look at a politician, normal Kenyan politician, who then cannot go through his craft, normal craft of politicking. He can't meet people in the streets because they are goons of the opponent or whoever is in leadership. Whether it's an MC or governor, because he has goons. Now, what's my reaction if it was me? I then need to get my own goons so that when I go out, I'm protected by the goons.
Yes.
Now,
why are you not protected by your word? I mean,
yes. Now listen to this.
You know, you've been in the political circle for some time.
Yes.
Why are you not protected by your word and policies and your manifesto?
Exactly. It ought to be the ideal.
Yes.
But you see, when you go out with that card, you are at the podium. You are telling people what you will do for them. But people come and destroy the dust. They beat up the people there and you scamper for safety. In fact, at times, as we've seen, gunshots are sounding.
Yeah.
People are scared. You will not have the democratic right and space at that time within which you can express yourself and the right, therefore, to submit yourself as a candidate to the people. Whereas when the person has goons in the same stage and atmosphere, he's protected by the goons. For you, therefore, to thrive as he would, you do the same thing as a reaction of the action that he has done. So you also get your own goons.
An eye for
pay
an
them,
eye?
Yes, pay them so that then you can get to a democratic space because there's no policeman to guard you because the police then are beholden to the stricture of statecraft whereby they will do what the state either wants or is perceived to want. Not necessarily the state meaning the republic, but the state at the time meaning that the existential power, maybe the governor, the senator, the MP. It depends on the circumstances. What we are saying is, it is not good. The question you asked and we are addressing here is it good for democracy? No. Because I will react, like I've said, the action of subduing me through the goons.
Yes.
Is then a communication to me that is the environment existing upon which I should thrive to. Meaning, therefore, it's goons, I do goons. It's peace, I do peace. Because how else would I then have the liberty of my environment and secure my liberty to be able to talk? If I have to work with people on my side, built up people, men and women, or men for that matter, who then will protect me, I'll do it. Because that's the only way I can come out of my house. And by the way, look at this way. There's no way you're going to put Kenyans into their houses because there are goons out there. No, we will walk out and we'll find a way of dealing with the situation.
So does it build someone's political
No,
capital?
but the law is clear. I give everything to the state to protect me except self-defense. Self-defense means also getting goons in order for me to exist. And that's self-defense. How else would they operate? So you bring goons, it looks now okay. Like my good friend has said, it looks okay because it serves the establishment as is, whatever establishment it is at whatever level you want to look at it. But when people react, and they will, it won't be good, even to the state itself. So democracy has certain prescriptions. One of it is peace. Respect to boundaries set out in law. Meaning, the police protect me because it has a duty. But whether I'm in the opposition or in government, that's it.
But does constitution and law apply when goons are unleashed and political players are just running amok?
You know, I have no reason to agree with anyone who says there's justification for goons going to disrupt any rally, even if it is a rally of a chama. There's no justification. We pay in this country to live. We are not here for free, but we pay for service. One of it is security. So you can't tell me that you can disrupt my rally and tomorrow you put the same rally and it's not disrupted. Why so? So that you have 2 hours to express yourself to the people. I don't have. I will get those 2 hours somehow, somewhat. If the police won't give it to me or guarantee to me, I'll find out guaranteeing to me. That's why, therefore, people in Kenya they hire their own security to their doors who open for them. We don't need to do that. We don't need to have watchmen at our doorsteps if there was no insecurity. But the perception of insecurity, therefore, secures us to go on our own personal initiative to secure ourselves, including for politicians who won't have that chance.
If we don't have political intolerance, where such kind of chaos is witnessed, then I stand very slim chances of winning a political seat.
And by the way, that becomes one of reasons we will see politicians table in court to nullify elections. Because if you deny me a conducive environment to campaign through mayhem and chaos, then that election cannot be said to be free and fair, which is a democratic requirement of our elections, that they must be free and fair. It can't be free and fair when I was not able to campaign because my opponents had goons unleashed against me wherever I went into public. And by the way, it is potent enough for judge to declare that election not free and fair. Now
on what basis?
On the basis that violence and chaos meted on politicians who are campaigning. Now, in other words, what we are saying is that we are setting very bad precedent. And it is so sad when this happens and the government seems okay with it, because allegedly it serves its interests today. Because tomorrow is coming where we need to set boundaries so clear that when people go out to campaign, they must be allowed to campaign, as is a requirement by the Elections Act of this nation. Now, the only thing we can do is to call upon the government and especially the IG to know that whatever it is they are allowing to grow, when it grows full cycle, they won't be able to handle it. And as Wakili is saying, another danger of it is that the people are innately wired to defend themselves where the government fails to defend them. You remember the chaos and the mayhem that was caused by Mungiki in Mount Kenya a few years back. It warranted a retaliation by the people, and there were gangs that took it upon themselves to even hang those they suspected to be Mungiki. Now imagine a scenario where this is not happening in Nairobi, but happening in many parts of the nation. We are birthing something we may not be able to counter when it grows full cycle. It's a very dangerous precedent we are setting. The government should be ashamed of itself for unleashing or allowing these gangs to thrive today. They should crack on them very seriously and make sure that this does not become the norm.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not available for a government to say that's not our gang. It's not available. There should be no gang, whether pro-government or against government, pro-candidate, that is pro-government, or otherwise. It is not available for government to tolerate any gang. So it is not a defense to hear, and it's not available for any officialdom to be had today to be saying that is not, those are not our people, that gang is not ours. It should not even exist in the first place.
Yes.
whether anti-pro-government, it shouldn't even exist. Whether chanting for or against government, it should not even exist. We should not have gangs in this country. We shouldn't.
How does this is the question, as we go for a break. So how does this really affect the political DNA of a nation?
Let me give an example.
Of Kenya.
Let me give an example. So in Rwanda...
Take a break.
Yes.
Yeah, let's take a break. When we come back, that's the question I want to ask. How does it really affect the political DNA of a nation so that we have a younger generation coming up? And much as the seniors in the political arena are trying to make it cleaner, or let's call it the Gen Z, are trying to make it clean, that our politics should be issue-based, ideals, give me your policies, stand there and sell your policies creatively. But we see some pockets of violence across the country. So how does it affect the DNA or political system in the country, even moving forward? Can we actually even run away from it? Let's take a break. And we come back, two brilliant brains answering urgent questions. My name is Victor Lo. Stay with us. All right, political intolerance that we are witnessing in the country, how do we get it right? And is it imprinted in our political DNA? Before we took a break, Kimani,
yes.
How does it affect our political DNA? Remember, we have got a younger generation with ambitions. Okay? Go ahead.
Now, the problem is there is a scenario we call man ke si, man ke do. In my mother tongue, we say even the leopard didn't know how to scratch until they showed it how to do so. The problem, again, is that the unemployment rates in this nation is very high. Now, when you create a scenario that goons can benefit themselves from the security lapse by the police, whenever there is a political event, the jobless younger generations and those desperate at it may look at it as a way of earning some reprieve from the spasms of hunger that they suffer from. So that they will come out whenever there is a political event with hope that after the event is done there will be chaos, and in the milieu of the chaos, they may get a thing or two for themselves to go back home with. You remember the demonstrations, the post-election demonstrations, and how gangs came from slums and compensated for themselves by breaking into people's shops and stealing. That becomes now a norm, not necessarily when there is demonstrations, but whenever there is a small political event. Gangs will come out, blow them out of proportion, wreak havoc, and in the process they are going to steal and compensate themselves for attending into those rallies. If it goes unchecked, that becomes a habit for the jobless, brass and young people to do so. And it is something that the government cannot dare to allow to happen, because it becomes our nature now. That because we are jobless and there is a political event, then we go there not necessarily to listen to what they are saying, but to wreak havoc, and in the milieu we compensate ourselves.
Yes.
That is the danger of what we are doing, because that now becomes our way of politicking. And it will be very difficult for the police to counter it, because they would have allowed it to grow beyond what they can handle.
Okay. Wakili, when you look at it, there is that aspect of our political DNA, of course. Kenyans drink, sleep, walk, talk politics. Everything is about us is just politics. Is it possible for us to get away from it and get it clean? How do we use this word, sanitize it, so that it looks, better?
Now, let me put it this way. It's not that bad yet. It's not. But we must be warned that it can get where we don't want it to get. We lapsed a bit substantially because of politics in 2007, 2008. We thought we can't get there because we use our mouth and words to speak at each other or with each other. But then it's all a question of leadership. If the government did not deploy an environment or predispose the country to an environment of politics, we would be having this discussion. In fact, the discussion a day or so before by Rigathi Gachagua on what he did, upon which the political decibels went a notch higher, wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
It started with someone to dispose this country into an electionary mode. Somebody somewhere is campaigning. In Nairobi, in Central, in other places at the coast. It means, therefore, if you're campaigning, we campaign. If you campaign, we critique. If you campaign, then we have to audit you. It means, therefore, we say the bad things that you've done. And therefore, you foment an environment of displeasure among the people. And in that cycle, therefore, you must agree to the displeasure of the people, because that's the critique and the audit that we give you.
Yeah.
So once you start campaigning, allow us, therefore, to talk down at you. In doing so, you must be tolerant enough to the bitter words that we come out with, because that is democracy. Suffice it to say, therefore, that this was not started by Kenyans. It was started by those that in power to socialize the Kenyans and manage them in a certain national psyche towards a certain movement, or orient them in a certain predisposition of a political mood and the political bickering that we are, because that is a season that has been introduced to us. So what else do we do? You tell us you've constructed roads, we tell you no. There are no roads that you've constructed, because there are none that we are seeing. You tell us that you've improved the economy, you say no, you have not improved the economy because we are suffering and children are not going to school, and so on and so forth. So therefore, that, like I've said, if you have a certain action, you then predispose us to a reaction, because that's how the equilibrium is sought in society.
Yeah.
What then should be the cue? I think the horse has bolted. We are already in a campaign mood as it is. If you're a politician worth your salt and you're not campaigning now or planning your campaign, then honestly, you have no business being in the political field or in the business of politics, because then it is beyond your control. It has been made available for you to be able to engage into. And for the public also, if you are worth your salt as a Kenyan citizen, you must be predisposed to the good and the bad of this country, and therefore voice yourself out for the reason that this is your life and you have no other place to go to. What is therefore happening is that we are then, in an essence, engaging ourselves into a movement towards the next 2 years of political management or political discussions, and at times, as bitterly as should be. The only issue we are saying is, can this be done? Whatever decibels that we get into, must it get violent? No, it doesn't have to. But then who introduces into the violence that we're experiencing? It is not the people. The people, honestly, who are going about their craft every day. Those that in matatus, those that are going to offices, were doing their craft. But then somebody somewhere came to Nairobi, and there was violence. And then the next is that the violence is transported to somewhere in Mwiki. And then the violence will surely be transported somewhere else, and that's the build-up of violence. Who introduced the violence? If you ask you, who introduced the violence at that time? It is not the people. And this country has fertile ground for violence because there are people who are jobless. If violence gives me food when I don't have food, then why can't I get the food?
That's a very big question. It's a fertile ground for violence.
Yes.
But then now, so there are two things here, violence and economy. So how will this, or how would it affect the economic growth that Kenya is actually, we are trying to stabilize everything. But generally speaking, how does it affect, not even violence per se, but political intolerance? How does it affect political economic growth?
Money follows stability. You can't invest in an unstable environment. So when you disturb the water, the first people you scare out of the economy are investors because of the losses.
But do you think there's some politicians who benefit from economically when there is violence?
Yes,
or
a lot.
intolerance?
You know, politicians are sometimes very selfish beings because politics is about who gets what, when, and how.
So the big question is how?
Now, the how is what matters most. If political violence will get me closer to attaining political power, then it is a tool I may be tempted heavily to use as a politician. How affects the lives of people, to a politician whose self-interests come first or are superior to the interest of the people, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That is why we have full-blown chaos in countries like Sudan, South Sudan, DRC, because in as much as the people are affected, these chaos and violences have political interests. The danger with it is economically, every unstable country is unstable economically. Because it goes without saying that if I'm an investor in a place that becomes chaotic, my first instinct is to protect my business.
Yeah.
And the best way to protect it at that moment is to close down and shift to safer places. Now, FDIs will become the first to be scared away. Foreign investors. The moment we allow goons to thrive, the moment people can't be assured that my chain of retails that I'm establishing, look at what is happening in Kenya. Look at, for instance, Quickmart, Naivas. They are being acquired by foreign investors who are coming, buying shares into these thriving retailers and pumping in money to grow them. That's why they are growing. Magunas, Naivas, Quickmart, they are growing very, very rapidly. Now, what happens when you have goons who will break into Magunas tomorrow, steal, tomorrow they break into Quickmart the other day? Foreign investors will fold up and tell guys, hey gentlemen, we have to get back our money and invest it elsewhere. Your environment is no longer safe. Manufacturers also. When there is an exit of investors, then the economy suffers as a result of job loss and loss of income. And that is why we are saying any government that cannot see the repercussions of what it is allowing to thrive today once it goes full cycle is an incompetent government that should think twice of its being in power.
Okay, okay. And even how do we make it clean? I mean, again, you've tested it before. Is there a way to make it sanitized? Is it even possible?
Yes, it is, but it's very progressive. It takes a lot of time to get to that.
So that's why you resolve to what is immediate and possible.
Yes, you know, politics is predisposed to quick fixing.
Yeah.
You secure the environment for your existential present. And the future will obviously reorganize itself. But this is what happens. Democracy also has its folly. And we must accept that. Democracy predisposes this, that you are a society, after a cycle of 5 years, you divide yourselves into whichever division that you want, because it's not prescribed. Religious, ethnic, gender, whatever you want, divide yourself. And you must, as a society, bias yourself for favor through that bias of someone, so that that person then becomes president, becomes governor, becomes this and that. So election process is a process of expressing biases for someone, but that bias is not controlled at the back office by norms. So then, if I elect you because you gave me 200 shillings, that's good enough. And I have a right to do it because it's my right to vote. And sometimes, it's features that are unreasonable. Remember, a voter is an emotionalized citizen. It's not the normal citizen, you and me, are here reasoning. It's not the Kenyan who reasons and said, haki yangu, whatever it is. No. It is an emotionalized society. And therefore, where your emotional reason then takes the back end. Now, our common immediate feature as society is ethnicity. We are seeing an emergence of the clarity of reason from the Gen Zs. But they're not in leadership yet. In fact, they're not the dominant generation. The dominant generation is the one that's adulterated into the ignominy of the culture of nepotism and tribalism and the bad things we're talking about every day.
Yeah.
We can talk about bad things, but that's just the talk. But we live the bad things because that's the life that we live. If I'm going to look for a job, who do I know? can I call someone there who knows me to give me a job? Even at IEBC, if you know someone, your 6 names will be added into an existing name so that you get it. Because you know someone. How else can my name be added and your name? If your name is not known, it won't be added as part of the 6. But those 6 that were added at IEBC list is because they were known. I have seen their names. They are names that are common and are known. And we can analyze them. Ethnicity is therefore readable in those names. And brotherization and nepotism is rife. And they'll get to the helm somehow, somewhat. Like they say. You know, public affairs is very interesting. And this is Kenya. Anything is possible. You can get your cousin into leadership, no matter how the noise is, because after some time we forget. Now that is the problem, and the incurable problem we have with middle class. A very fearsome, risky, averse society. The middle class is such that when you own your M-Pesa and you have your car and your child goes to a middle class school, a private school and so on, you less want to disrupt that equilibrium. And therefore, when there's danger of disruption, especially through politics, you take a back seat. So you keep talking, talk and complain. When action is behooved of you, is the people in Kibera who will come out and the people in Mlango Kubwa who come out. In fact, it's the people of Kibera and Mlango Kubwa who become tool of trade for the politicians because they're easy to manipulate and pay. You can pay a middle class person who goes to do his craft at a hospital or a law firm or in court or whatever it is you want. Because he won't agree, he won't take to 200 because he makes over 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 a day. And therefore, as a society, we have not only the ethnic issue. For us to sanitize this way, there's a class stratification issue that has to be dealt with. It is not for the person of Kibera to fight for us as middle class so that then tomorrow you have a road. No, the person of Kibera will not fight for you because he'll go there to get money and fight for nothing. For the 200 shillings that he gets in order to disrupt and to become the goon. Because the person in Kibera is not a goon. He is made a goon by money given to him by a politician to behave like a goon. He wakes up every day.
Can we change the status quo?
No, we can't for now because it is controlled by government. Look, the government needs the goons, the politicians need the goons, society needs the goons. Because they pay them to activate a road upon which...
That is painful.
It is painful, but it is what it is. Look at it this way. The goon, nobody is a goon. Nobody. But you are made a goon. Activated. You activators are even you. When I give you 100,000 now and say abuse him, it's a good price to pay.
Especially if he's jobless.
Can you try right now? Can we just have it clean, Kimani? Because when you look at, do we have a chance of making it better as we move towards election? I'm still coming back to the younger generation because we need to give them a clean platform so that whatever they want to do, politically speaking, they need, truth be said, they're enlightened. And they need to come out with a different idea on how to express their political ideologies in a different way. Can we make it better? Wakili says,
No, we can. But again, it is incumbent of the government to do so. Now, the problem with it is we are asking the beneficiaries of the violence to end the violence. Now, this is how it all began. When the younger generations came out and told the president, you have to govern us in a better way, he unleashed all. If I reflect myself and say the government allegedly unleashed goons on them. You remember the demonstrations were infiltrated by goons. That whose intention was to scare away.
That was a word then.
Yes, was to scare away demonstrators from getting into demonstrations. If it would be normal of a parent to call a son and tell the son, don't go there. There are goons that have now come up, and in the process of which you might end up getting hurt. So when it persisted, we saw abductions and killing of those who are actively engaged in these demonstrations. When the system appeared to be working, so it grew now to intimidation of political dissidents. So, while it is true that if the government wanted, it can end it in a day, because we have a functional NIS that will tell you, including the person funding the chaos, if it wasn't coming from the government and the government was willing to bring an end to it. So you would start by arresting those who are funding before you come to those who are being misused to wreak havoc. So the government can do this. The question is the government willing and ready to disenfranchise these goons when it is the beneficiary of their services?
Okay.
Now, if it is not, and politically so it wouldn't be, then this one persists. And I agree with Wakili that it will persist because the only person who has the ability to end it is the beneficiary of the violence, and as a result of which, you don't end that which serves your interests.
Thank you.
That is why the best thing the government is telling us is that this is not our good, as if the government should have its goons.
So the question is, which way Kenya?
Which way Kenya is a sad question, or it has a sad answer to it, because the way forward is in the hands of the beneficiaries of the violence. So we can only tell them that this may serve you today, it won't serve you tomorrow. And for the sake of Kenyans, stop it. And hope they will, because they wield all the instruments of power. When you have bad governance in place, as we do, because I call it so, because it has all the powers to end violence and it refuses. I'm not accusing it of having started it. I'm accusing it of refusing to end it when it can. The danger with that is that the people will perish. Okay. It becomes difficult for you to go to church. It becomes difficult for you to go out when there are political events. We are headed to 2027, and by the way, by close of this year, we'll go full throttle into campaigns. Then you can imagine how limited people will be in movement, in fear that once you go out, you're not assured that you're coming back with your phone, or you're coming back with your wallet, or that you're coming back with your car in one piece. So this must come to an end. Yes.
Okay. Wakili, which way Kenya?
Well, the beauty about Kenya is the Kenyans themselves. Kenyans may have a distorted, there might be distortions in how you organize them by the leadership. But I can tell you something. The leaders of this country do not have total control of Kenyans. Kenyans have control of themselves. Not control their leaders, but they have control of themselves. So the bad cannot override the good. At a point, Kenyans ordinarily congregate and sober up and say, you know what, we're not going to fight for this person. I want to say this is the first election that will be presided by the presidency of the time. The first election, because all the time he's been vice president or deputy president. Now he's going to be the first election. There is a history to be made. Are you the violent president, or are you did you foster a violent environment against which an election didn't take place? Or will you then foster a peaceful environment? And I like what he said, that if he loses election, he'll walk home. That's a good way to start. But again, I've not heard him condemn the violence. The fact remains that he must be the first person to talk against the violence, because we want to hear him say as much. And by the way, what is a crown? A crown is interpreted from the word and behavior. So if the presence, you go to State House and the president says, I don't want to see that man, you will not leave at that place. You will not be there to submit your side. You won't be heard, because the handlers will not tolerate you there. So it means, therefore, his word and his action mean a lot. So the moment he condemns, it means there's a follow-through by action to those that are his handlers. It means if he doesn't say anything, then we call it in law acquiescence. It means, therefore, that you tolerate something without speaking against it. That's why in World Forum, you'll be told you don't tolerate, for instance, Al-Shabaab. Why don't you speak against it? It is because when you speak it is actionized through the words that you use. So words are important. What it is, just to come back to your question, Kenyans organize themselves. The elasticity isn't much because they know they have so much to lose if we get to violence. The appeal here is, it is us against them. So it is Kenyans against those that are in leadership that would probably organize them to a predisposition of violence. And violence begets more violence.
Yeah. Society,
therefore, must coexist because it respects the borders set out in law. And we're not here to love each other. We don't have to. In fact, our duty is to tolerate each other by doing the things that we're supposed to do, but more importantly, not doing those things that we're not supposed to do. For instance, harming the next person. So the point remains that I do know that even if there is incitement and forming the people through inducement to money, inducement to benefits, to a predisposition of violence by those in leadership, that then has to stop at a point. And you know, money is perishable.
It is.
The value of money goes down at a point in time. You realize that if I hurt myself because of 1,000, either you bring 1,000 to 5,000 so I continue agreeing to hurt myself, or in the alternative, then I won't take the 1,000 because then it's valued because of the pain that I go through. If people go through pain, it stops because then they can't tolerate the pain unless the price of the pain goes high. So we are saying Kenyans will survive this.
Very good.
We've been there before and we'll survive this.
We'll survive this. Gentlemen, you know what the beauty about is that when we talk about all this happening, we just hope that something is going to happen. And then later on, it will be so sad to see that we've talked about it on a national television and then it continues. But I hope that politicians understand that. But to Kenya, let's be woke, let's do the right thing, and let's follow the law. Wakili will say you'll always follow the law. Wakili, right?
With fidelity.
With fidelity. Always follow the law. And by then, when you follow the law, you'll find yourself always a free man. A free man. That's what's happening. All right. That's where we wrap it. Wakili George Keith is an advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for coming to the show. And Kimani, who is a public policy analyst and a political analyst as well. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming to the show. We just want to make it clear today that we need to make it good. My name is Victor Lo. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Bye-bye.